Let's see, is Leisha coming? I know she's, okay. I'll give it a minute then. All right, I'm gonna just start with the intro.
Recording in progress.
And go from there. So I'd like to call the meeting to order. Welcome everyone to the April 6, 2023 school committee meeting. In keeping with an act relative to extending certain state of emergency accommodations, this meeting will be conducted remotely over Zoom. Attendance by board commission members will be remote, and remote attendance shall count towards quorum. The meeting will be broadcast live and recorded on ECAT. This meeting is open to the public and will take your questions by the chat feature at the bottom of your screen. Please make sure to include your full name and address. We'll do our best to answer all questions. However, we will not read questions that have already been answered. Okay, so first up is minutes. The first minutes are the regular school committee meeting minutes from Thursday, March 23rd, 2023. Questions, comments, or edits? No? Okay. Can I get a motion then to approve the Easton School Committee meeting minutes from the regular meeting on Thursday, March 23rd, 2023?
So moved, DeLuca.
I get a second?
Second, DeLuca. Second, DeLuca. Give that one to Caroline.
I'm gonna fight you for this one, Nancy.
It's her last time.
Well, I should make all the motions
She
tonight.
can make all the motions. Yes, I agree. She can make all of them.
All the motions. Roll call vote.
O'Neill, yes.
Durant, yes.
DeLuca, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes.
All right. Next up is the regular school committee meeting minutes from Thursday, March 30th, 2023. Questions, comments, or edit? All right, can I get a motion to approve the regular school committee meeting minutes from Thursday, March 30th, 2023?
O'Neill, so moved.
Can I get a second?
Star, second.
Roll call vote.
O'Neill, yes.
Durant, yes.
DeLuca, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes.
Excellent. All right, next up is the executive session meeting minutes from Thursday, March 23rd, 2023. Does anyone want me to hold them for edits? Okay. Can I get either a motion to approve and release at this time, or approve and not release at this time?
I suggest Jen make that motion one way or the other because, or Jackie, because they're in a better position to judge.
I would, my suggestion would be to approve but not release at this time.
That's what I thought.
So I make that
Second.
motion.
All right, can I get a second?
Second. O'Neill.
Roll call vote.
O'Neill, yes.
Durant, yes.
DeLuca, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes.
Excellent, thank you. All right, next up, vote to accept a donation from Sarah's Village. Dr. Cabral?
Thank you. We have a wonderfully generous opportunity this evening. Corinne McCarthy, who's the chair of the Physical Education and Health and Wellness Department here, is joining us this evening to present. Mr. and Mrs. Bresnahan are also here. They're the founding members of Sarah's Village, which Ms. McCarthy will speak further about. They are providing the opportunity for a very generous donation. You might recall that Sarah's Village donated $20,000 in April of 22 to provide information to the district. Can you hear me? Okay, I just got a Zoom error, so I just want to make sure I'm still with you.
Got that.
Yeah. We all did, yeah.
Okay, to provide information to the district on reducing stress, wellness programs, mental health, how to reduce the stigma of mental health issues. So As you can see, Mrs. Kavanaugh and Ms. McCarthy are here, and the Bresnahans are as well. Welcome to you both, and I'll turn it over to Ms. McCarthy and Ms. Kavanaugh.
Hi. Yes, I'm very excited to tell everyone what we've been doing with the donations for over the year. I'm excited to have Mr. and Mrs. Bresnahan here. So what we started with working with Minding Your Mind speakers for 7th and 10th grade students to have them come into our health classes. And so that was about 556 students that got this messaging for our mental health lessons. We also are having Ivy Watts, who's a mental health speaker, come to Easton Middle School and talk to all of our middle school students, and that's going to be on 5/25 for Mental Health Month. We're planning on doing some activities around that as well. Just recently, and we just got this news that they're also going to support the Easton 97 Health and Wellness Club to help with these activities for the month of May, where we are going to be doing like having pet therapy. We're going to do poster contests, like Wear Green Day, really just to spread the message of the importance of it's okay to not be okay. Active Minds has met with the Bresnahans as well. They're working on planning how they can help in any way. There isn't a plan yet, but the high school Active Minds is doing some stuff as well with that. And then we also decided that we wanted to reach the lower grade level. So at RO, we're going to have Minding Your Mind speaker Wes come and share his story of how mental health challenges affected his life and his messaging of it's okay to not be okay. I did reach out to Minding Your Minds again because they have a pre-K to 4 program that's called Kind Minds, but it's not available in New England until the fall. So that is definitely on for next year and to kind of keep pushing forward. I know Mark wanted to talk to you, so if Mark or Cynthia want to speak, I can't see them.
All right. Yes, please call us Mark and Cynthia, but we're back. It was a year ago when we promised a grant of $20,000. We did not have it in the bank, but we did raise the money, and we've been providing the support. And this year, we're excited. We had a great year in 2022, our second year as a foundation. And so we do have the cash in the bank, and that's why we're excited to come back and say that we'd like to give you another grant for $20,000 for the 23 and 24 school year. And you know, for us, actually, it was 6 years ago today that we lost Sarah. So, you know, it meant a lot to us to have the opportunity to talk with all of you and to just really celebrate all the hard work that Corinne has been leading and the rest of the administration team with Kelly and Chrissy and Teresa to put the program in action. And we're excited about it, and the opportunity to eliminate the stigma and impact those health survey results that we went over last year. So excited about it. When we met with the Active Minds Club, they were amazing. You know, we were thinking about, I didn't give them an easy thing to say, like, oh, what's your why for being in the club? And, you know, I remember Sarah and Thomas's why kind of being, so it looked good on my college application, you know, and, but they really had, you know, deep and important things that meant to them and how mental health had impacted their lives, their own family, relative or something. And it was impressive. And I think it's that, you know, it's going to be in the hallways, in the classrooms, each lesson plan, each conversation that happens at the schools. And initially thinking it was just the high school, but it's really the middle school, and it is in the lower grades, you know, and where it's impacting and that opportunity for improvement. So we're super excited to be there. And Chrissy was very foresight, saying, "Okay, we're doing some great things, but how are we gonna keep paying for this stuff?" And that's how we are. We want to be able to help you guys do sustained change and programs that will last. So we're here again, and so and we hope to be here for many years in the future. But we'll take it one at a time. So that's our story. Happy to.
If I can just add on that when Mark and Cynthia shared with us that they were providing $20,000 for next school year, I think I cried. Surprise, right? But they have been so wonderful to work with, and they are making such a difference out of such a tragedy that occurred in their lives. And I really commend you, Mark and Cynthia, for the work that you're doing. And I cannot thank you enough for the support that you're providing us in the Easton Public Schools and the change that you will make for our students. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, we can assure you that this is a tremendous gift in Sarah's honor, and it is going to have lasting effects on quite a number of students. And so I hope that you know that in education, we know we don't really see what we've been able to thwart or the direction we've been able to help students go. But I can tell you for sure that this has already had an impact. It will continue to have an impact. And I hope you have faith that that's true, because you are really changing lives here.
Thanks. Yeah, we do.
Caroline?
I just want to say that I am so grateful for the legacy that you have created for your wonderful and I know beloved daughter. I so admire people that turn, really tragic personal circumstances into something that is helping others. And I just admire you so much. And as I said, the legacy that you've left of your daughter is just marvelous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kelly?
I just like to add, as somebody who gets to witness it, who gets to see these students as the Minding Your Mind speakers come out of health class, and the fact that every single one of our students will have a Minding Your Mind person in front of them at some point, is remarkable. And the students who need it stay after class and they talk with these individuals about their struggles and their own struggles, and that personal connection from somebody outside of school has been so impactful for them. I just want you to know that we see it in the school already, and it's only going to grow as we continue this programming. So thank you very, very much.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing.
Any other? Jen?
I'll just add in, I have a student who's at OA now, and the Minding Your Mind speaker was one of the, you get very little out of your teenage kids, as I'm sure we all know, right? But that was one of the things that we actually had a conversation about, that, it was very impactful. And there was a community presentation in the evening, if I'm recalling the right speaker. It was pretty well attended, but very engaging, very impactful. So I'm very grateful for the programming that you've enabled the schools to offer, and that we'll be able to continue that going forward. And the recognition that this is getting into younger and younger grades. We certainly have a lot that we're seeing in the middle school, and then even younger than that. So the recognition of that and the resources to be able to address the younger kids is hugely important, and hopefully will help build that foundation of good health and habits, and removing the stigma, so that as they work through those tough adolescent years, hopefully we'll have kids who are coming out on the other side in a better place than what we're seeing today, which is this couldn't come at a better or more needed time in terms of what we're seeing with students. So again, thank you so much for everything that you're doing to help our students. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Corinne?
I just want to add too, Sarah was one of my students when she was at RO. So it is something special for me to really work and bring these opportunities to our students. And like I said, even what Jen said about the lower grade levels, like we can instill these healthy messages even earlier. I think we're just going to be so much better off, and I'm just so proud to be a part of this. So thank you so much.
You bet. You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, so we need to vote to accept the donation. Can I get a motion to accept the very, very generous donation from Sarah's Village to help our programming and students from Richardson Olmsted EMS and OA?
O'Neill, so moved with tremendous gratitude.
Can I get a second?
Star second.
Roll call vote.
O'Neill, yes.
Durant, yes.
DeLuca, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Star yes.
And thank you very, very much.
Awesome. You're welcome.
You're welcome.
And let me add one other thing. So you said as educators, sometimes you don't get to see all the great stuff that happens. So our son Thomas, 2012 graduate, getting married this fall and working in biotech in Cambridge. So he's a Kyle Sousa disciple, and he's on his second startup, and associate scientist, and he's thriving, and all the great stuff. He was cross country person too, so a lot of great stuff through the Easton schools, and it really helped form him and help him be successful. So.
You just made our night. It should be a requirement that they have to come back and report what's up with them.
Well, we hung out with Sarah's friends over the holidays too, and
Nice.
and they're all doing pretty awesome too. So
Awesome. Thank you.
all right,
Awesome.
thanks
Thank you.
again.
Have
All right,
All right.
see you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, discussion and possible vote to approve the DEI Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Student Advisory Council proposal. Dr. Cabral?
So Mrs. Kavanaugh is still here with a couple of other guests. Mrs. Kavanaugh has a DEI or Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Student Advisory Council, and she is joined by Ellie Cooper, Adjustment Counselor and current Social Justice Intern, Joyce Riyad, Junior at OA and Student Leader of the project, and Sonia Warwick, Junior at OA. And they have a project which I won't describe, I'll let them describe it to you. It's exciting. I've actually talked to the students about this, and I'm looking forward to this coming to fruition. It's a lot of work, but they're committed to it. And I'll turn it over to Ms. Kavanaugh so they can tell you all about it.
Thank you so much. I want to, first of all, just thank Ms. Cooper, Joyce, and Sonia for all the hard work they have done on this project. As you know, part of our school improvement plan was to start advisory councils for DEI work in our school for both students and parents. And we've been working really hard on initiatives that'll help make our school more inclusive and celebrate the diversity that's in the space that we have. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and then I'm going to share my screen, and they've created a great slideshow presentation for you with this proposal. So Ms. Cooper, do you want to start?
Sure. Good evening, everybody. It's nice to virtually meet you and see you. I just feel like every time that I say meet, I have to say virtually because I am definitely an in-person type person, but I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be here with some fabulous students and, of course, with Principal Kavanaugh. I've had the honor of being the social justice intern. I work under Ms. St. Mary, who is one of the adjustment counselors at OA, and a big part of my role is focusing on DEI work. So I've been somebody leading this diversity, equity, and inclusion board and reporting back to Principal Kavanaugh. And this is one of the projects that we have been talking about, and I will let the students take over from here, but I'm just happy to be here and get to support their presentation tonight.
Thanks, Ms. Cooper. Sonia, do you want to introduce yourself next?
Yes, definitely. So my name is Sonia Warwick. I am a sophomore at OA, and I'm a part of a series of clubs and activities, including the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council at OA.
Thanks, Sonia. And Joyce is truly the mastermind behind this whole project. She's been meeting with me regularly throughout the year, problem solving and working through how to best have this come to fruition. So Joyce, I'll let you introduce yourself next.
Thank you so much. My name is Joyce Riyad. I'm a junior at OA. I'm involved in clubs and organizations that advocate for diversity and equality. And I really want to thank Mrs. Kavanaugh for meeting with me and helping me with this project.
Great. Okay, do you want me to change the slide? You guys just let me know when you're ready to switch slides and I'll work through it, okay?
Perfect.
Great.
So today's meeting is for the Flags project proposal. So the goal of this presentation is to gain approval and support of the school committee in hanging world flags that represent everyone at OA. The goal of our project is to show the importance and need to promote a more diverse environment at OA. It has been discussed that students do not feel represented here at OA. Easton is mostly white. Therefore, students of color and minorities sometimes do not feel seen or represented. This project is also going to raise awareness and spark conversation about student identities. We want to hang the world flags in the cafeteria, which is a location students go to during breakfast and during lunch. And it's a time where they talk to each other about their lives and their identities. And such a simple project would make the conversations more inclusive and would create a unity among students. So the action plan, first, we presented this proposal to Principal Kavanaugh earlier in the year. We also sent out a student survey, a Google form, and we asked what flag or flags, if you see in the school cafeteria, would you feel represented, just to get an idea of how many flags we need and the student population, and Sonia would discuss the data later on. We also, step 3 is to present this to the school committee, which we are doing right now. And if approved, we will move forward with our project. For the financial action plan, if approved, we will finalize the responses we got from the Google form to make sure it's up to date. And then we will have a meeting with Mrs. Kavanaugh to discuss any funding from the school, because even though this is a student-led project, it is actually a school project. Hopefully it's going to stay in OA forever, and all students will benefit from it. But at the same time, we have a committee of around 11 students, so we will be fundraising. We will also reach out to other clubs, including multicultural clubs and like French club, Spanish club, other clubs that also advocate for diversity, to see if they can contribute to fundraising.
So moving into that data, from the survey, we were able to collect a bunch of responses from students and staff at OA, and we've gotten a collective 111 different flags spanning 6 major continents. So that just gives you a sense of the amount of flags that we would need for the project. And then each flag we're planning to have as a 2 by 3 foot flag, and then they would be $8.95 per flag. So a rough estimate for if we use the 111 flags would be $993.45. However, obviously we're going to have some additional costs associated with putting up the flags in the school as well. And we just have some views of the Olive Ames cafeteria from 2 angles. The goal is to hang the flags from the ceiling of the lower level of the cafeteria, which is marked in the first picture and zoomed in the second one.
These are some examples of other schools in the area who have this project. And as you can see, they're done very differently. I also talked to Mrs. Kavanaugh, and she told me that she talked to other principals who have them in our district here.
Next up, we have some student feedback that was collected at OA. So we asked a series of students, what does it mean to you to have the flags of the world in the cafeteria? And we got a variety of responses, including, it would help with representation and make people feel more seen. It would promote an overall atmosphere of cultural awareness that would hinder any feelings of alienation that I previously felt as a student of color. It would increase cultural visibility in the school and create a better sense of unity and belonging. And then also it would make me feel welcome and represented. So with that, that's the end of our slideshow. Does anyone have any questions?
Any questions from the committee? Jackie?
Thank you so much for that presentation. It was great. And I'm very excited you're doing this. I think this is a wonderful idea. I'm looking forward to seeing it. I was wondering, I know you said you sent out questions to the student body. I was wondering what kind of response you got from people. Did you get a lot of students responding? Was it mostly certain grades? Was it kind of an overall response?
It was centering advisory to all students and staff. So it was all students. And we got a lot of the same responses. So we filtered it and it was 111 flags. But yeah, we were surprised. A lot of students contributed and also staff.
That's
I can
great.
add
Thank
to
you.
that, Joyce, a little bit too. Sorry to cut anybody off. We had close to about 400 responses actually, and our strategic time of planning that was actually recommended by Principal Kavanaugh for some past stuff that she's gained, some data collection, and during advisory was a really peak time. And I can say that even after that time, just the amount of responses we got, I'd say we got an additional 50 after even just that time slot that we saw coming in. And we actually closed the responses just so that we could make sure we had some great data for tonight. But we also had a bunch of people who were saying, you know, that they'd still continue to fill out the survey as well.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
I have a logistical question, probably for Kelly. I love the look and the idea of them hanging from the ceiling. I just think that's very impactful. Is there any way that that's going to interfere with the AV equipment that goes to the screen?
Right now, no. However, we're working with, I want to give a huge, extend my gratitude to John Norman, who is our head of maintenance for the school. So he's been working closely and doing measurements with us and with the students to try to figure out the best way to set it up. So he has that in mind when we are done with the final project. We'll make sure it doesn't affect that, doesn't affect the windows. And then obviously the DPW and I mean the other people who work in our town and in our district in terms of like safety and making sure everything's hung to code are all going to be involved in the project before we actually hang the flags.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay.
I'll just add how tremendously proud we are and so 100% supportive of this project. Anything we can do to assist you, of course we will, including going forward. So hopefully many of us will still be here even after you guys move on. And we want to make sure we have a plan for the future in things like making sure we have enough space to add more flags in the future or replace them as maybe they are faded from the windows from the sun or need to be cleaned or laundered or anything like that. We just want to make sure that we have a plan because we want this to last forever. Great job.
Thanks, Dr. Cabral. One of the things we also talked about is even just a simple poster with a QR code that says, if your flag's not represented here, please fill out this form and it'll live forever with the new students coming in. Yeah.
Perfect.
That's a great idea. Okay. Any other comments before we vote? Okay. Then can I get a motion to accept or approve the DEI Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Student Advisory Council proposal?
O'Neill so moved with enthusiasm.
DeLuca second.
Roll call vote.
O'Neill, yes.
Rance, yes.
DeLuca, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes.
All right, thank you. I cannot wait to see this.
I could just
Awesome.
add a modest suggestion to the end of it. If maybe we put some kind of, whether it's a plaque or a placard or something that just kind of explains that this was an effort, who spearheaded this effort, maybe the year it was installed, just to kind of memorialize this effort. And then you can have your QR code there. I just think that would be a great addition to the wonderful installation.
That's an excellent idea, and I want to, in any way I can, credit these amazing students for all the work they've put into this project. So, thanks, Dr. Cabral.
All right,
Thank you
thank
all.
you. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes, thank you as well.
All right, next up, discussion and possible vote to approve an out-of-state trip. Dr. Cabral?
Mrs. Kavanaugh is hanging around a little longer. She is presenting DECA's trip to Orlando, Florida to attend the International Career Development Conference from April 22nd to 26th. We had 3 juniors qualify for this conference, but I will let Ms. Kavanaugh tell you more about this this honor, really.
Absolutely. So I think you know from past proposals to travel for DECA that we have a strong DECA program where we pretty consistently every year have a group of students who qualify for internationals. This year we have 3 students, one of which, Brian Wayne, came in first place at the state conference this year, who are traveling to or would like to travel to Orlando, Florida to present their projects at the international competition. As Dr. Cabral said, this trip takes place on April 22nd. So DECA moves very quickly. They just qualified a few weeks ago, and now we're planning this trip for them. I want to give my sincerest gratitude and a huge shout out to Miss Megan Campbell. She's an English teacher who is taking these students on this trip, and it is no easy feat to organize 3 different students doing 3 different presentations in a conference center while also exploring what Orlando has to offer. She's doing an outstanding job working with these students and families to make sure that their travel plans go go really well, and that everything happens according to plan, and the kids have the best opportunity to showcase the amazing work they've done on their projects. So I do have the proposal open in front of me. If you have any questions specifically about the trip, I can answer them for you.
Anyone have any questions? Well,
I think the committee's familiar with this from past years. We have talented students who
Yes.
qualify every year.
Mhm.
all right, and can I get,
Excited for them, certainly. So congratulations, and look forward to hearing how they do and about their experience.
okay, can I get a motion to approve the out-of-state trip for the DECA International Career Development Conference?
O'Neill, so moved.
Can I get a second?
Star second.
Roll call vote.
O'Neill, yes.
Durance, yes.
DeLuca, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes.
All right, great. Thank you.
Thank you all. I will let you know how we do.
Good luck to everybody.
Have
Yeah.
a great night, Ms. Kavanaugh.
You're welcome to stay.
Always gets a chuckle for some reason. I don't know.
I appreciate it. I love your meetings, and I will leave, but I will continue to listen for the rest of the night because I always learn so much every time I'm on school committee. So thank you guys.
Thank you. Okay, next up is discussion and possible vote to change the 2022-2023 school schedule of school committee meetings. And I asked to put this on the agenda just so we can discuss in light of the extension of the possibility of staying remote, if that is something the school committee wishes to do, and or the possibility of returning to in-person, if that is something the school committee would like to do. So I'm just kind of tossing it out to discussion, and if that's something that we want to decide on tonight or not, or anyone? Nancy?
Yeah. I don't know. I would love to go back to Simmons Lecture Hall. I really would. And I understand everybody else's feelings on this. The room is now hybrid. So we actually could have a meeting with people with school committee members being on Zoom and some of us being at Simmons Lecture Hall. That is a possibility. Maybe that's something that we should go for maybe when we start our July 13th meeting. Like the school year kind of thing, rather than the election kind of year. Zoom's great when it's like the weather's terrible, or you have a knee replacement and you can't get there, that kind of thing. But I don't know, I just kind of miss seeing people and having direct conversation rather than our little boxes. But I'm just one person, and I totally respect anybody that that would rather do Zoom. I mean, what a great thing that we have here that we can do it this way. But I also really enjoy real meetings too. Thank you, Michelle.
Anyone else? Jen?
Yeah, I'd be open to, I think we owe it to ourselves to explore options, right? So I think it would be helpful if we could, either by trying an in-person or trying a meeting based in the room, or maybe setting up some time separately to kind of go in and test the equipment and sort of get a feel for how things would work and how the flow would work if we were to go back at least partially in person. I'd be willing to explore maybe doing, I could see, say, during the summer, having meetings be virtual, because people may be, it's a high likelihood that people will be on vacation, having to anchor yourself to a physical location during a time of year when people are traveling might not make sense. And I do like the flexibility that Zoom brings in terms of, as Nancy said, if you're recovering from an injury, or if you're feeling under the weather, want to participate, but don't want to come spread your germs to the people around you. If you are traveling, I sometimes, travel for business, but could easily join a meeting, in the evening, just not physically in Easton. But like Nancy said, there is something to be said for that, for being in person and having that in-person connection. And I just think where the room has been outfitted to allow for what could be a workable hybrid solution, where, as needed, if either members of the committee or our guests who are coming in, for example, with Kelly tonight and with Bresnahans, for the ability for them to Zoom in and not have to physically be present, even if we were in the room. And I've seen it evolve enough professionally in the past couple of years where organizations are getting better at this. We've had quite a few in my work life that have worked really well. We do these very global town halls. And there will be a live audience and a live panel, say in an office in New York, but some of the panelists are coming in from London or whatever, and they're as much, it's a seamless experience. So I think I would like us to give it a shot and see how things work, and then if we have concerns, or if the technology just doesn't work, then we'll at least be able to make a really informed decision about kind of how to best move forward. Or maybe we do an alternating schedule, right, where some are online, or we move online if we think it's a topic where we'll have high community participation and a lot of people would like to view the meeting and whatever. So I'm just open to looking at options here.
Jackie?
Yeah, I like what Jen said. I think I would be in favor of looking at a hybrid option. I think that having the option, if you can't get in there for whatever reason, that you can still participate in the meeting and you can still be there, even if it's virtually. Being in person it's a lot more fun. It definitely is. But I think I would love to be able to keep the virtual option as well.
Michelle, I would make the recommendation or the motion that this year we finish out, because we can, on our Zoom, finish out, and like Jen said, do some practicing this summer with the Simmons room, and just see, what works for everybody.
So you're saying to stay remote through our June 22nd meeting?
Correct. Let's finish out the school year as we have this whole year, and then maybe do the hybrid starting July 13th, maybe.
Yeah, or maybe maybe if it made sense to stay virtual through the summer, but maybe we could just schedule some time with ECAT in the lecture hall and try to do a test run and
Yeah.
sort of, work some stuff out before we go live. Because we want to, it's important again for the committee members and presenters to be able to do so in a way that works, but also we want it to be a meaningful experience for the public as well. And we certainly don't want to take anything away from the public in terms of their ability to view and to participate if they wish in whatever format it makes sense. So yeah, I think we can. And Nancy, I don't know if you are still connected in closely with ECAT, but
on the board.
Okay, yeah. So maybe it would make sense for us to schedule some time later in the spring, perhaps after the town meeting and all the other, crazy things that are taking up time now, and just get in there and see how it feels and how it works, and then we can decide.
Sounds good.
My personal opinion, so I haven't said yet, I would love to see us all back in person. I mean, that's just me. I'm in person every day, but I understand those considerations. I'm open to, I think we should be in person. That's just my opinion, unless there's an extenuating circumstance, a particular night or whatever, but as a norm, I would love to see us back in person. And I do like the idea that maybe, I don't think we're gonna have people zooming in from London, but we might have somebody from somewhere. Or a student presenter like from tonight that couldn't be here, but the rest of the people are in person. Like as much in person I would like, I think, I think participation from the public should go back into person and not be part of that hybrid model. But definitely something to look at, but that would, returning more to that normal, I agree with, there's something to be said for being in person and just being a presence, a live presence at this point in the game. I also,
Sorry. Do we have to vote this, or can we just leave it as is?
I didn't think we had to vote, but I don't know, so I always put it on there because I'd rather have it on there and not use it than not have put it on there.
Okay.
Your current schedule says virtual meeting via Zoom, so it's just if you want to change that or not.
Well, actually, the current schedule starting tonight, it's what's in our says Simmons Lecture Hall, because this was the night we were supposed to go back, but then they extended it.
Right, I'm sorry, that's what I mean. If you're going virtual, it says virtual meeting via Zoom, and if not, it says Simmons Lecture Hall. So
Right.
if you want to change that, or say or hybrid, or however you'd like to do it, that's pretty much the change you need to make if you want to do it at this meeting or another meeting.
Okay, so we can talk about if there's any dates in the next schedule that we want to keep remote. But I'm hearing that for April 27th, May 11th, May 25th, June 8th, and June 22nd, we would like to keep those at the 5 o'clock virtual.
Except for June 8th, which I think we should make 6 o'clock.
Oh, that's right, because we had
Please.
8:30.
Yeah.
Is
Thank you.
Is 6 o'clock okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Because I know we had it, it's in there for 6:30, Nancy, but I don't know if that was because it was assuming in person.
Okay. Which, I mean, 6 or 6:30, whichever.
What
June
time
8th.
is,
See,
what time is that, 5 o'clock, 3 o'clock?
that's 3 to 6. But it could be
Alright, so
3 to 5.
6,
Could be
6,
3 to 5.
So do you want to keep it 6:30, just to give
Yeah,
everyone
sure.
time? Okay, so Lynn, can we change, the 6th, the 27th, the 11th, and June 22nd to 5 o'clock, and all of them back to Zoom just for this calendar?
And the 25th too. Okay.
And the 25th to Zoom, but keeping it at 6:30, correct?
Yes.
No, June 8th. June 8th is 6:30.
That's what I meant, yep.
Okay.
All right, we don't need to vote, we're just, that's, okay. I didn't remember voting before, that was why I was a little confused, but, okay, so we have a plan for that. And then we go on, discussion of possible vote on the 2023 to 2024 schedule of school committee meetings, and this is a second reading, and then, also if we want to consider keeping the July and August, remote for some of the discussion tonight, that would be something we could work in as an edit.
I mean, we can always put those remote for the summer and leave everything else as is. And then when we decide what we're gonna do, we can revise it.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Okay, so the
And-
dates are fine, correct?
Yep.
So what we're suggesting is July 13th to July 17th, changing it to 5 o'clock and virtual. And keeping
Okay.
everything else as is for now.
And then just one other change, June 6th, make that 6:30, please.
June 6th, 6:30. All right.
Also, Lynn adjusted the October 5th meeting. That's the professional teacher status celebration.
To 6:30, right?
Correct. Yes.
Well,
Looking,
it starts at 5:45, Alicia?
The ceremony.
Okay, I guess if we're in person, 6:30 would work. So we just have to walk down the hall. Potentially, okay.
yeah, just looking at last December. I feel like for the past few years, we've consolidated December a little bit. So this past year, we did December 1st. And then we did
15th.
the 15th. Yeah, I'm thinking the 21st is a little close to holidays.
Great, my birthday.
Yeah, like the
Let's see.
21st is like,
Do you want to pick a different day that week?
yeah, I'm wondering. So so we've got, let's see, so we go November 2nd and 16th, and then we have the Thanksgiving break, do the 7th, and then, yeah, maybe earlier in the week, or maybe there are 3 weeks between November 16th and December 7th.
Yeah, but 28th would be vacation.
What's that?
But if we move it to the 28th, that's Christmas vacation or winter.
No, I was thinking, maybe like maybe like the 19th or something of Christmas. Or would it make sense to do November 2nd, 16th, and 30th? There are 5 Thursdays that month. And then do December 14th. And then take a break.
No.
No? Okay.
We're not doing, I vote against December 14th. I'm busy that day.
Okay. Fair enough.
But we could do, I agree, November 30th. And then you don't want to be, maybe all right, I see what you're saying.
That's a lot, no.
Yeah. How about if we do like December 19th instead of December 21st? I like that one.
Yeah, that could work, I think. That way it's not rolling us right on top of
Right.
that last holiday crush when
Yeah.
we're all out of our minds and getting ready to go into vacation. And yeah.
With the 20th, I don't know. It seems like the first and third Tuesday, I might have a subcommittee. I don't care. Either of those days. If I can't make it, I can't make it. You want to say the 19th?
Yeah, why don't we throw in the 19th for now? I mean, it's,
okay.
Eight months away. We can look at it.
If you want, do you want to do Monday the 18th? Michelle, would that be better?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay.
No. All right, so the edits are going to be for July and August, 5 o'clock and virtual. And December 21st is going to be December 19th. And June 6th is going to be 6:30. Is that correct? Did I miss anything?
Yep. Right.
All right, and we can vote on this, right, as a second reading with the edits?
Think so.
Okay. So any other changes? Are you good, Jen?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
All right. So can I get a motion to accept the school committee meetings schedule for 2023, 2024 with the noted edits?
O'Neill with irony, so moved.
Can I get a second?
DeLuca, second.
Roll call vote.
O'Neill, yes.
Durant, yes.
DeLuca, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes.
All right, thank you. Okay, next up is the FY24 budget presentation. Dr. Cabral.
Thanks. Mrs. Pruitt's going to present the slides while I run through the presentation. While she's doing that, I just want to extend my gratitude and pride to Ms. Andrea Starzewski for all the work that she's been doing so far. She's joining us here, as you can see. I might be presenting this right now, but we've been working tirelessly together on this, and already in the short time she's been here, she has just made tremendous efforts on our budget, and I'm very excited where we're headed, our long-term plans for the budget. It is going to be tight the next couple of years. Of course, we are a microcosm of the town and the country, really, and there is a very real possibility that a recession is coming, and just trying to prepare for that in a way that doesn't impede these really critical services for our kids. So I'll talk more in an upcoming meeting about how we're going to be doing our budgeting a lot differently with our principals and our departments and those changes. But for now, we'll just give you the presentation for FY24. And just to give you an idea of that timeline, the presentation to the Finance Committee, the Select Board, and yourselves is on April 26th. The next school committee meeting is April 27th. Whether you vote on this tonight or not, it gives the opportunity for public comment, which is why it's posted as a public hearing. And you can always amend your vote on the 27th if there are changes at that point. We're really hoping very much that this budget presentation is accepted as is. We feel that this is going to be very beneficial for the district, and so we're really hoping we can maintain this. Okay, the process and considerations, just a quick recap of our process. We start, of course, with our strategic plan. I will say we're a little bit behind this year because we did have a changing of the guard, several changings of the guards in our business department, but we are right on track again and going strong. The dates might be a little off, but we always start with the staff input. The principals spend 2 staff meetings over 2 months reviewing the strategic plan and really going over the needs based on the strategic plan of what is going to be the needs to provide these services to our students in a way that helps their achievement, both social, emotionally, academically. Then the principals work to prioritize those needs and they present it to the entire cabinet, which is all of the central office and building administration across the district. We completed that as well. The executive team, which is the central office staff, then prioritizes district-wide, right? Takes all the priorities from each individual school, compares that to our strategic plan, our long-range goals, what we think we can afford this year, what we think we can afford going forward. And then we take that and turn it into this budget presentation. It goes back for staff review, which will be happening, so the principals can make sure the staff knows exactly what has been presented and what is going forward at this time. And then the public presentations beyond the school committee, the select board, finance committee, and of course, ultimately a town meeting where we really hope to get support for this year. Okay. Another reminder is the next slide. That is our budget target definitions. This is something that we've developed here that I think has been really helpful in getting people to understand our targets for our budgets. And just a quick reminder, reactive and essential is really those things that we need to react to a current need or a mandate. We're either falling behind on something, we're potentially going to get cited. We just don't have the capacity that we know we need for our students. And even getting things in that category may not fully satisfy a need or a mandate, but it does help us close the gap. And of course, we always have long-term plans to move the needle on all of those. Proactive is when we're planning for imminent or developing needs or a mandate that we know based on our work with the Department of Education or our legislators that we know is coming. Lack of preparation in this area or lack of the ability for the budget to address these needs just moves them into reactive. And you'll see a couple of examples of that tonight. And then strategic, that's planning for those challenging and evolving needs of the future. Our staff has a tremendous capacity to be able to have that visioning and forward thinking. Our budget isn't always able to accommodate that, but even beyond the operating budget, we're always looking at other funding sources. Sometimes we're able to make things happen at a net neutral, where it's not costing us anything by moving things around or being very creative. Sometimes that means tapping into grants or revolving accounts or other one-time funding, which we then leverage to move things slowly into the operating budget. Regressive is when we're really going backwards. We did not have, we've had 1 year since I've been here where we really were regressive, where we just completely went backwards. The budget was so constricted that we unfortunately had to eliminate staff and cut back on services. Fortunately, that's not the case this year. And the innovative is just, that's the dream. That's where we want to go. That's where our staff is always forward thinking. Regardless of what the budget presents, we always have our eyes on our ultimate vision and we'll continue working toward that. So this year, as I said, we're not in regressive. Where we are is really, this is actually kind of a representation. I have that needle a little high on reactive essential because we're getting up there. We're getting a little closer to proactive. You can see I sort of color coded some things that have been reactive, and remain reactive that we're trying to address with this budget. And then that yellow color is something that was in our proactive for a couple of years. But again, when we don't address it financially, it moves itself down to a reactive need. And a special education program that was actually in strategic a couple of years ago. If you were to look at past presentations, we knew that there was one program in the district. We have approximately 4 special ed programs at each school. And we knew there was one that didn't have current students, but based on our current enrollment projections, we knew in a couple of years that those students were going to move up. They have moved up, and we are going to need that special ed program for those students. And so that's why something strategic has slowly moved down to proactive, and now we're realizing it as a reactive need for next year. So then I just want to get into some of our significant needs this year, which are not in an order of priority, and that's on the next slide. This picture is our wonderful central office staff that recently volunteered their time at School on Wheels. And this list is not in an order of priority, but some of these you've heard for a few years now, and they are rearing their heads again because our greatest need is people. We're a human resource industry, and one-time expenditures happen often, but really our greatest need is our people and being able to have front-facing staff with our students. The first is English learner staff. I'll have some slides to explain the need of this in a little bit more detail, but this is not something new to you. Pre-K staff, teachers, and a coordinator because of our greatly increasing enrollment. Secondary counseling and special education coordinator. I'll talk about the mental health needs at the secondary level across the district really, but essentially at the secondary level at this point. And the program I discussed, as well as a DEI coordinator. On the next slide, we'll start with some of our needs. You've seen this slide before. The laws haven't changed. They're still in place. We have a legal and moral obligation, I would argue, to really help our English language learners assimilate and thrive in our district. English language is still the name of the program. The students we refer to as multilingual. They may be learning English, but these students sometimes speak several languages, and they're acquiring English, which is very complex. And so this is not any sort of shortcoming on their part. These are intelligent, wonderful, diverse students that we're matriculating into our system, and we have to be able to support them properly. The next slide shows the levels. Again, I've discussed this with you in the past. There are two main levels for our multilingual learners. Foundational is levels 1, 2, and 3, and it's prescribed by regulations that at least 2 to 3 45-minute periods a day should be direct instruction from a certified licensed ESL teacher. Transitional is at least 1 period of no less than 45 minutes of direct instruction. So you can see I've just compared, I'm using pre-COVID numbers for a lot of things because of course our data was skewed during COVID, and so this is right before we entered those COVID years. In FY19, we had 56 students in foundational level. This is done through an assessment from the staff. And 10 were in transitional. And that represented a combined 27,420 hours of service. And at the time, we had 3 teachers in this area. That was a 1 to 22 ratio. Now, 22 may seem like, well, that's about a classroom size, but these services, because they're so tailored to the students' needs and they're at 6 different levels, these need to be done sometimes 1-on-1 or 1 to 5. And we simply don't have the service hours of these professionals to service the children. And so fast forward to FY23, we've gone from 66 students total in the ESL program to 104 students. And in that time, we've only been able to add 1 additional staff. So you can see our ratio has actually increased. Even though we were able to add 1 professional, we're not keeping up with the amount of students that are moving into the district. And so we're looking to add 1 or 2 of these professionals this year. That's still, as you saw from the definition of reactive earlier, it's not going to meet the required hours, which you can see have grown exponentially since FY19. But we have to make a more concerted effort to get there and to close that gap. And so we're looking to hire 2 of those professionals this year, which is the most significant increase we've seen. But again, we just keep falling further and further behind as our population continues to grow.
Dr. Harrell, can I just add one thing to this?
Yes.
that it just occurred to me that it also, what's important to note is that our students that don't receive services any longer are still,
Yes.
they still have to be monitored. And that requires a lot of collaboration between our EL teachers and our general education teachers as well. So that is not reflected on here, but that is additional hours. And we have about 30 students that no longer receive services. So that adds to the workload as well.
That's right. Regulations require that when a student is exited from level 6 and they don't require these one-on-one services anymore, that they must be monitored for 4 more years. And so these students continue to be monitored by the same staff that's providing these services. And the next slide will show you that at this point, because we are so taxed and we don't have enough staff, only, sorry, go back again, only level 1 and most of level 2, but not even all of level 2, which are the newcomers, the non-English speakers, or those that speak English the least, are being served in kindergarten, and we have no service in pre-K right now. And so obviously that is a hole we are looking to close for those children. The next slide now shows we're switching now from English learner needs to our pre-kindergarten enrollment. If I go back to FY19, again, I will say that the data you can see in FY21 and FY22 greatly changed. We were growing in that area, and then there was a significant cutoff in students that were coming to school because it's not compulsory, and during COVID, we found a lot of parents kept their children home, which makes sense. We understand that. However, if we take a look at the trends here, we see that we add typically between 14 and 22 students from August to June. And I just want to remind you of something we've talked about a lot. Pre-kindergarten is the only grade in our school that students age into throughout the year. So as soon as a student turns 3, they can be evaluated for enrollment into our pre-kindergarten program. So as you can imagine, having 90 students in August, you can see that just by April, not even by the end of this school year, students can age in April, May, June. We already have 15 students more than we started the year with, and the most students we've had on this chart, and going back even further. For next year, now I'm talking April of the year before, we already have 99 students enrolled. And this is before the school year even starts. So last year, we needed to add 2 sections of pre-kindergartners. They're already full based on the number of students that came in throughout the year. And next year, we have to add 3 more sections. So 2 half-day sections and 1 full-day section. Because pre-K is a special ed program, we can't only provide 5-day, full-day service, because not every student, that isn't the best placement for every special education student. It's very individualized. We're going to have 5 full days, 5 half days, and 4 half days. Those are the 3 options for pre-K students. And so we need to add to the staff. We need a coordinator because it is a special ed program, there are intensive services in terms of early intervention. They make home visits. They individually assess every child in their placement. And so in addition to the teachers and paras, this requires a coordinator, special education coordinator. So you can see those numbers have greatly increased. We did, of course, expect an increase in enrollment once the new school was built. It surprised me, I will admit, that we received so many more students this year because we were moving halfway through the year, and I thought that might be a deterrent, but clearly it was not. And again, next year, we already anticipate blowing these numbers away. Probably before the school year even starts, we'll be over the 105 that we currently have now in April. So we have to make space for that. If a special needs student presents, it is mandatory that we serve them. And we cannot have entire classrooms of special ed students. It needs to be less than a 50% population. So right now we have a cap of 15 students in our pre-K classroom, 7 special ed students, and 8 what we call community peers. And so every time we add special education students, we need to add community peers as well. And so that's what creates the need for these extra sessions. So that is pre-kindergarten. Our next need is the special education and mental health challenges that we're facing. I just spoke about special education coordination. The only school that doesn't have a special ed coordinator right now is the high school. And you can see that's our highest numbers of active IEPs. Special education coordinators run all team meetings, they coordinate services, they supervise special education staff. Not having one at the high school has been extremely difficult. In addition to that, since we don't have one there, the 2 psychologists who are there are currently doing the lion's share of this work. And because of the mental health challenges we're seeing, we really need those professionals to help provide direct services, counseling services to students. So the next slide shows that within these IEPs, you can see how many of these are directly contributable to social and emotional and mental health needs. 10% of all of our students on IEPs qualify for emotional disability services. 46% of students that are outplaced because of an emotional disability as opposed to a cognitive or physical disability. Our requests for tutoring, which are mostly due to a psychiatric hospitalization or confinement in the home for mental health needs. In 21-22, we had 24. In 22-23, we have 30 as of the end of March. So we're just into the spring now, and we already have surpassed the need from last year. And we have 20 students that are homeless in DCF shelters or in foster care. And those students need intensive attention and support. And not only will it be helpful for the number of IEPs at the high school to have a special education coordinator, as I said prior, it will free up the psychologists to be able to work in tandem with the school adjustment counselors and guidance counselors to work with these students that are in the most vulnerable need at our high school. The next need is, and this picture of the schools is here metaphorically. What we've realized in our diversity, equity, and inclusion work is that it is a lot like building a huge structure. You can't just work in isolation. You can't just know about one particular piece of the puzzle. It really needs to be an overall comprehensive effort. And I just listed several of the programs and activities that we have going on. We're encouraged by these pockets of conversation and reflection, but as you'll see on the next slide, true transformation requires an investment in personal and interpersonal development, awareness, and the creation of shared cultural practices and the complete redesign of inequitable systems all at the same time. And I added that emphasis to this quote by Jamila Duggan. This is something that we're aware of. We are constantly focusing, and then an emergency crops up and we have to run over in that area, or we get back to our work, but it doesn't connect to the work we did before that. We consider this emergent. We consider this something that we really need full-time focus on. The goal isn't for us to be the experts of equity, but lifelong students of equity. We don't expect this to ever end. And so it's not about checking off a box. It is not about putting in a bunch of programs or curricula. It's making a concerted effort to be comprehensive in all aspects of our district. If we continue to silo our activities, it leads us to believe that it's separate. It's separate from instruction, which is separate from culture, which is separate from every other aspect of learning. We need to simultaneously examine our curriculum, our instruction, our grading, discipline, counseling, relationship, culture, tradition, practices, policies, everything, our language, how we treat one another, our relationships. And without, honestly, more than one person, but at this point, trying to really show our commitment to this work by having one person focusing on this, we're hoping that it can bring together all of our efforts and really put them out in the forefront so that we're always using a lens of equity in an effort to make all of our students and staff feel as though they belong. It's a whole person, whole system change process that's linked to culture, identity, and hopefully ultimately healing. And we feel very strongly about advocating for this position in the district. Those are the biggest needs at this time. Are there any questions about those before I move to budget influencers or things that we consider possible savings or expenses going forward for next year? Okay. The next slide, we do have a few things that we think will provide overall
I'm sorry, Dr. Cabral, Jackie had raised her hand.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Jackie, please.
No, I did it last minute. I know you said you needed, you were looking for extra, our new pre-K teachers for the additional classrooms. Is there a need for kindergarten as well? Are there additional classrooms coming on with kindergarten that you know of at this point?
That's a great question. We're not sure. Kindergarten and grade 1 are our most mercurial grades always. Because kindergarten is not compulsory in the state yet. And there are a lot of parents, if you think about grade 1 first, a lot of parents who have their children in a daycare that they're very happy with. Many daycares have a kindergarten program within them, and so they may leave their child there and then they come in first grade. By the same token, we have pre-kindergarten children that either don't qualify for our program, they don't age in time, they're at a daycare that the parent is satisfied with, or frankly, we have a waiting list and we're not able to take them into our school if they're a non-special ed student. So they basically show up in kindergarten. So we have had registration already for kindergarten. We've had orientation already. We really urge anyone in the public who has a kindergartner for the next school year to contact the school right away, because as you can imagine, parents who are a parent of a child that it's their first child going to school, they typically don't think about kindergarten and frankly try not to think about kindergarten until later on in the summer. And so we really try to publicize that we're doing this now for our planning purposes, but we do know that a lot of people miss it because we always have a lot more students coming in at the start of the school year. So as of right now, we're okay, but that can certainly change. That is absolutely true. And it's something that we kind of bite our fingernails until the start of school every year. We are in a position where we may be able to shift teachers around, but we really won't know that until a little bit closer to September. But I do want to take the opportunity to urge people to tell your friends and neighbors who have small children to please register them. But like I said, like I said, right now we're okay because we always leave a small amount because we haven't had a year yet where we don't get 10 to 25 children. So the next slide talks about.
Dr. Cabral, I'm sorry, if I can just add, we have some questions coming in. I just want to remind everyone that in order to read the questions, please add your name and your street, your address, so that we can read your questions. We aren't able, unfortunately, with open meeting law, we aren't able to read your question unless your name and your address are listed. Thank you.
Thanks. Excuse me. So the next slide talks about some of those influencers. Of course, we're going to be saving our rent this year. That's wonderful. That was close to $90,000 a year. That's worked into our budget. Utilities, we just, believe it or not, we just received our first bill for utilities, even though we've been in the school going on 4 months now. So we didn't really have a good sense of what we've been using for utilities to this point. So we're being very cautious about what those savings might be. We knew from the start, our experts had told us that even though we would be saving a lot on energy, things like electricity are going to be a lot more. We're coming from schools, if you'll remember, that have one electrical outlet per room, for example, and now we have one-to-one devices for students. So very, very different use. So it is going to take us a little while to calibrate what that usage is going to be. Food service, that's also possible. The reason we're not sure is because there's still some legislation going back and forth about whether the government is going to continue paying for food. Right now, they are not saying that they're going to continue, but we know that there's legislation out there that it might happen. And then retirements. This is very different. In the past, we could always count on some savings for retirements, and we even worked that into the budget. But in the last 2 years, we've seen a very, very different trend in employment, which I'm sure people from every industry can recount. People are coming in at much higher rates. There are far less candidates to choose from. And so where we may have had significant savings by hiring a first or second year teacher with a exiting salary of someone who's been here for 30 years, we're not realizing as much of a savings anymore. And because that's such a huge change, we just need a couple of years to better be able to predict that and see if that's going to change. So unfortunately, while there may be savings in retirements, we don't anticipate they'll be as much as they have been historically. In terms of expenses, we have a couple of outstanding contract negotiations that will certainly influence the budget next year. Also, our technology procurement cycle, again, coming out of COVID, becoming very unexpectedly a one-to-one district was wonderful in terms of the technology. However, it comes with some needs that are now our responsibility to pay for. The grants were extraordinary to get these devices, but now we have to have a procurement plan so that we can replace them. They're getting much harder and much more use from students individually, taking them home, bringing them back, than they would have in a computer lab. And so we're really trying to get a handle of what the life expectancy is now for these devices. But also we had to purchase a tremendous amount of software that students could use when we went remote for such a significant time. And it had such an impact, a lasting impact, in many ways, very positive lasting impact on how teachers were delivering instruction. And so they're very cognizant of wanting to keep that software. And so this is a tax on our budget going forward that really changes the trajectory of our typical procurement cycle from the past. Our enrollments have been going up. This school year and next school year, we're seeing increased enrollment. Ultimately, we hope that will have an impact on our budget, and we can hopefully move from a minimum aid district to a foundation district. But we're in that spot between having the additional students and needing to provide additional service for them and not getting the realization of those funds yet. And so that's going to be a tax on the budget for probably a couple of years. And then I had explained at an earlier school committee meeting, because we were very concerned about this. This is something that it really is affecting the entire Commonwealth. The out of district cost for students has increased by 14% in 1 year. And just for context, in the last decade combined, it has increased a total of 15%. It's usually about 2% or less than that per year. And it's gone to 14% in 1 year. So this represents a 1% increase of our overall budget. And that is extremely troublesome. When we have something that influential on our budget, we try to plan it out over a couple of years. And this is something that we just found out about this school year, and we're already doing the budget for next year. So it's very concerning to all of us. We presented to our legislators and some short and long-term ideas we have to try to mitigate that, but nothing has developed yet. And so we have to prepare for that possibility. The next slide is, I just want to make sure that we're mindful. I'm about to present the numbers here, right? The finale and the numbers of this whole business, but it is important that we consider some things going forward. First of all, that technology procurement cycle is still in development. While we're doing our best with longitudinal data and our technology experts to predict what it is, That could go either way, meaning it could end up costing us more money. So that's something we have to keep our eye on. Some of the pre-kindergarten staff and the special education staff that I'm talking about adding for the special education program and the rising enrollment costs, we don't have the opportunity to put them in the budget. We put them in the budget, and you'll see in a minute, we had to cut that down based on the needs of having a balanced budget with the town. And so we're putting them into revolving accounts right now. Revolving accounts are accounts that funding goes into. In this case, we have a pre-K funding or a special education revolving account that pre-K tuitions go into. We're still charging pre-K tuition for this purpose, and they don't, unfortunately, completely cover the cost of these professionals. We have enough money in there really for just a couple of years. And so in the next couple of years, we're going to have to keep our eye on the budget and slowly matriculate those people from the revolving accounts into the operating budget. And if we are not able to do that, as with the case with some interventionists and paraprofessionals that we have in grants right now, if we're not able to move them all over into the operating budget, that will result in cuts in a few years. And so we have to be very mindful of that. The same is true of our summer school program, not ESY, which is extended school year for special education students. That has been and continues to be in our operating budget. But when we were in COVID, we received grant money and put together the Summer Enrichment Academy for students who didn't qualify for ESY. That has been far more successful than we ever anticipated. Our professionals have made it so fun and engaging for our students, and it's really helpful to mitigate what's called learning loss or the summer slide. And those grants are federal grants that are still in effect. We would love to continue that we found that is such a great service to our students. And so we have to keep in mind that within 2 years, those grants are going to run out as well. So what we don't want to do is create a fiscal cliff. But we have such significant needs now that in order to close this budget gap for next year, we are leveraging some of these grants and revolving accounts very cautiously. But we want to let you know that we are keeping a very close eye on this, and we are planning future budgets with this in mind, matriculating these people into the operating budget, as I said. So let's start talking numbers. Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education every year provides a Chapter 70 summary. In other words, they're telling us how much they think it's going to cost us to educate our children in Easton. You can see here, you certainly can look over this, and all this information is available on the DESE website. But the short of it is that according to DESE, when they put a dollar figure on, and they literally do every individual student by demographic, by need in the district. As I say sometimes when I'm trying to describe Chapter 70 formula to people, I say it's like every child has a price tag on their forehead. And DESE, they understand that some students cost more to educate than other students. And so with our current population in mind, they've gone through and compiled how much they estimate it's going to cost us to educate them next year. And based on their projections of our students, they predict a 4.56% increase in our costs to educate our students. Now, you know from our budget subcommittee meetings that the town is really looking for us to come in at a 2.5% increase because with the budget right now, there is a deficit. And so all across the town, everyone is cutting back their budgets. So let me show you where we started and where we've come up to at this point and what we're proposing to you tonight. So keep in mind 4.5% increase based on our needs, and the town's looking for 2.5%. The next slide shows that just our increase in personnel in our contractual costs, certainly staff isn't getting 3.53% in increases in salary, but we have steps and lanes and other factors that roll into personnel. That's 3.53%. And then the increases in the necessary staff that I discussed, that comes out to 4.47%. Falls under the 4.5%, but certainly not at 2.5. Unfortunately, with the expenses in the out of district that I explained, our operational contracts like legal fees and so forth, things that we can't do without, and a significant increase in transportation this year, that represents another 1.73. So that actually brings our need, our conservative need for next year to 6.2%. Clearly, that's not going to work. The town simply doesn't have the money to provide. Our Chapter 70 aid was minimum aid this year, which means we literally received $102,000 in Chapter 70 aid. That's clearly not sufficient. If you take a look at the next slide, I'll show you that through a tremendous amount of work with Andrea and our leadership team, we came up with some reductions in reallocations. We are moving some staff around, eliminating some positions due to attrition, leveraging these grants and revolving accounts that I talked about for technology and positions. And by doing that, we were able to shave off 3.2%. That truly is what we feel we can comfortably do at this time, which brings us down to a 3% request of the town. I have shared this, of course. We don't know, the numbers are still being refined, so we don't know if we'll have to move ultimately to 2.5%. That would represent another $250,000 cut for us, which you can imagine would have to come from positions. And that would be several really critical positions. What we did in order to shave off, if you will, 3.2%, like I said, was made all the reductions we really felt that the system could endure at this time. It does involve some elimination of positions. It does involve some movement of staff, and it does involve the tricky strategy of moving some people into accounts that are going to end, and hopefully in the next couple of years be able to move them back. That's what we feel we can do at this time, and so that's what we're presenting for your consideration and possible vote. That's what I'll be presenting to our joint presentation to the Finance Committee and the Select Board on April 26th. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, Jackie?
Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Dr. Cabral. Thank you, Andrea. I know you put a lot of work into this with your administrators, and I appreciate that you're really only making additions that you feel are absolutely necessary, and of course those that we have no control over, like the wages and the transportation costs. And I was hoping, I know we have been talking about that this is a level funded budget. And Dr. Cabral, after I'm done, or after we're all done, if you could explain what that means, because level funded doesn't mean the same budget as last year. And I want to make sure people understand what that means. So I was looking at the town administrator's budget change memo from last Monday. And as you said, we still have a deficit. It has been reduced, which is great. But he in his memo had suggested that we cut another over $474,000. So I was wondering, when you said you brought our budget down further, is that incorporating his suggested cuts as well?
Yes, he didn't suggest specific cuts in terms of certain personnel or whatnot. That wouldn't be something that he does, but yes, it incorporates all of that. This is what we feel we've been able to shave down to the absolute minimum.
Okay. And I think the other thing that is important for people to know is because we're a MAID district, we really, the amount that the state gives us per student is very important. And I think last year we got $60 per student, and this year in the governor's budget, she is proposing $30 per student, even though we, along with many other districts, have been advocating for $100 per student. So there are a lot of constraints in our budget. So I really appreciate all the moving around and all the creative things you've done to meet our needs. I think that's it. So, you know, whenever maybe the committee's done with their questions, if you could explain what a level funded budget is, that would be appreciated.
Sure. Actually, if I could do it now, because I just want to make sure this is clear. There is level funded and there's level service. We were asked to provide a level service budget, and you're absolutely right. Those are two very different things. Level funded is devastating. Level service is difficult at best, but level funded is devastating. Level funded is when you are asked to have the same amount of money as you did last year. And you can see just from contractual increases and increases in services and utilities, it absolutely can't be done without really decimating the system and making tremendous cuts to the tune of usually over $1 million. So fortunately, that wasn't the request. It was a request, though, of level service. And level service means not making additions, providing the same services, not making advances, not moving to progressive, not moving the district forward, but really staying put. The difficulty with that is you've heard me talk about additions. We really consider these additions to be level service. So for example, if a student is in a special education program in one school with their classmates, say there are 10, 20 students in a particular program, or that's too many, we would have maybe 12 students in a program. If 4 of them move forward and 8 remain, and there aren't any students in the program at the next school, we have to provide a staff member to serve those students at the next school while still having staff at the school with the remaining 8 students. And so we consider that level service. We're not augmenting services. Those students are getting the same service they got last year. They're just getting it at a different level. Same thing with, for example, the pre-K additions. We are serving our pre-K kids. We just have more of them this year, significantly more. So it's the same service. We just have more kids showing up that we are obligated, if they're special education students, to serve. So even though I'm talking about additions, they are still level service. So that is certainly concerning because we aren't making strides forward. We aren't really putting a dent in things that we've talked about being reactive needs for a long time. But that's the difference between level funded and level service.
Thank you. Do any other committee members have questions or comments? Seeing any, I do have a couple. Could we go back to the chapter 70 slide? I love the inclusion of this slide, and I'll tell you why, but I also have some questions on it. So this is just either Dr. Cabral or Andrea, if you can validate whether or not my hunch here is correct. The required net school spending here, I feel like this is artificially low for us based on the fact that we are not getting a wage adjustment factor that our neighbors are getting, right? So it all comes back to wage adjustment factor to me. So I just want to point that out. And again, for anybody who may be watching this now or later, we're getting very into the weeds here, but I do think it's important for the public to know that these numbers are very, in my opinion, very, very conservative regarding how much it actually costs to educate students in general and students in particular in Easton, where we are competing with neighboring towns that are budgeted for higher wages when we are trying to recruit and retain our staff. So is that correct? In terms of, yes?
Yes, I'll let Andrea jump in if she'd like to speak to this, but yes, among some, there are a lot of factors that go into this. That is certainly one of them. One of the conversations we've been having tirelessly is that Easton is not in the Boston labor market, where some of our directly adjacent neighbors are. What that means is that there is a percentage worked into the formula for people for towns or cities that are in the Boston labor market, with the presumption that the school system in that town needs to hire people at a higher rate because you're competing with the Boston labor market. Clearly, we cannot provide our staff with non-competitive rates. Clearly, we can't pay them less than Mansfield, for example, and expect to be competitive with the performance. And so, yes, we find ourselves in that position. We've worked with our legislators on that. We've really worked hard to educate people about what that is, and we continue to work on that. Just being able to change our labor market would shift our budget by over $1 million a year. And so that is something that we are continue to work on.
Okay, great. So then I'll get to why I love this slide. It's because we've always historically shown what a level service increase would mean. We've sometimes shown in the past the differences between a regressive, reactive, proactive percent change. What I like about this is that for anybody questioning whether or not those numbers that we're generating are conservative enough, I feel like there is a sentiment that can be out there that, well, your budget's over $40 million. Can't you find a couple $100,000?
Sure.
And so I like that this shows that from a completely objective third-party source that historically does not favor Easton's scenario based on a number of factors that disadvantage us, that even with that, it is showing that just the cost of moving ahead to provide the most basic level of required educational services to our students, we have a significant increase that greatly exceeds Proposition 2.5, town targets, and what we would like department-wise. I don't think in past years we've proposed anything higher than 4% the time I've been here. So I do appreciate that this is here because it shows that objectively the cost of educating students today increases by higher than our revenue does consistently. So I really like this piece of information. I think it's very helpful.
Yeah, it's clearly not sustainable with a 2.5 tax cap. If it's consistently 4 or 5%, it's just not sustainable.
Yep. Okay. All right. I don't think I had any other questions. And just for anybody watching from the public, there's a lot of information presented. You may wonder why we don't have more questions, because this is an ongoing conversation that takes place over months. So this is stuff that's already been communicated during several other meetings and opportunities along the way. So this isn't the first time we're seeing this. So that's why we're not having a ton of discussion on it.
And we have members on the budget subcommittee for the town that has talked about this information with the town as well.
Absolutely. Yep. Okay. Does anybody else have any questions on the committee? Okay. So let's see. So that's the presentation. So I believe the next item on the agenda then would be the public hearing. So this would be an opportunity for the public to make comments or questions. And as Chrissy mentioned, if you do submit via the Q&A feature, please include your name and address, which is required for the record.
So there is somebody that has put in 2 questions, and this I think is in reference to the DEI position. This is Kristen Martin, Center Street, Northeastern. You mentioned having diverse students. How can you support them without having diverse staff? What are you doing to change it?
That's a great question. One of the slides in the presentation was a list of things, right? And as I described, while we're doing a lot of things from professional development to, thank you, Mrs. Pruitt, And this is not an exhaustive list by any means, but we have partnerships with community organizations and the ADL and Massachusetts Association for School Superintendents. What we really believe we need is I'm not sure if this was maybe before the presentation or the discussion of the DEI coordinator, but what we really feel like we need is the purposeful coordination of all of these things. And so that's why we hope to add a DEI coordinator. In terms of, we don't really believe that it's just about retaining diverse staff, about recruiting diverse staff, but retaining diverse staff. And so that's a multi-pronged effort, right? We need to make sure that people feel as though they belong. And that's part of all of this work. Diversity, equity, inclusion. We want to be diverse, we want to have equity, and we want to include everyone, but really the ultimate goal is belonging. We want every single person, regardless of their ability, of their race, of their gender, of their sexual orientation, their faith. It doesn't matter. We want every person to know and feel as though they're a valued member of the district. And so, we have worked with organizations like Raising Multicultural Kids to make sure that we have people of color in our elementary classrooms, almost 50% or a little over 50% of our classrooms now. But again, we're just a microcosm of the community. We really feel that, and I've said this publicly with our meetings with Raising Multicultural Kids and Human Rights Coalition, this is a concerted community effort. When someone looks at a place to work, whether it's a school department or anything really, they're looking at the greater community as well. Sometimes they're even thinking about moving into the community. And so we really believe that it's our responsibility as a school district to work with the greater community as well and make sure that the community shows that it's a welcoming place for people to be, to live, to learn, to grow, and to belong. So this can't just be a school. It's got to be a whole community. And so we're looking to coordinate our efforts even better at the town level to make this a welcoming place for people. As I said, it's not going to be a check off the box. It's not going to be, oh, we did this. That's great. We're done. This is a lot of reflection and lifelong, a lifelong process for all of us. And then we've hired a human resources director so we could focus more specifically on recruitment and the retainment that I talked about. So we've become part of a group, Massachusetts Diversity Partners, so that we've already gone to two job fairs that are specific to diverse candidates so we can attract them to our district. Our population of diverse staff members has grown in the last 2 years. It's not going to change overnight, but we continue in that effort to attract people to our community. But again, it's about retainment just as much as it is about recruitment.
So Kristen Martin has a few other questions as well. She said, you also mentioned equity as a whole person, a whole system. What are you doing to ensure students and staff of color are feeling supported?
Mm-hmm. Again, we have a lot of these, again, this is not exhaustive. We have the Superintendent Advisory Committee, which Raising Multicultural Kids was actually a spinoff of that, and we have a great partnership with them. We started a peer leadership program with the ADL. And so now we have in the high school and the middle school, we have student leaders who are learning through the ADL how to approach difficult conversations with students and teach them how to advocate for themselves. Mrs. Kavanaugh has started an OA DEI Student Advisory Council where she's got a lot of participation from students. Student voice is really important to us, and so we're trying to create as many opportunities for student voice as possible. Again, I have student representation on my Superintendent Advisory Council as well. We had a program called Walk in My Shoes where students were able to speak their truth and really discuss their experience at Oliver Ames. It was specifically Oliver Ames, but we know that it's true of the entire district. It was very powerful. It was very eye-opening for a lot of staff. We're continuing those conversations as well.
We also just started a partnership with an organization called Ideas, IDEAS, where they're offering professional development within our district, but also they offer affinity groups. And so we are in the process of advertising those. Some staff members have already received notification of the affinity groups. Ideally, we want to have affinity groups within the district for our staff specifically. However, we're still looking to grow that population. So in order to have an affinity group, we need to have a larger population. So that's why we're looking outside to have some affinity groups.
Yeah, I would actually like to speak to that too.
Yeah.
We're very mindful. I'll speak for myself. I'm very mindful of making sure that we have a balance, right? I believe, this is my personal belief, that as a person of a white woman, that I have, because I have enjoyed privilege not offered to other people in our country, that I have an onus of responsibility to do something about this. However, I'm also very mindful of not taking away from the voice of people that have this experience that I don't have. So we want to make sure that we are encouraging people to participate. But to Chrissy's point about a low incidence right now, while I want people to participate and have a voice, I feel as if I approach the one, or I think we currently have 7 or 8 African American, that doesn't include Asian or Indian or Native American, to approach someone and ask if they will lead a particular effort. What I don't want to do is tokenize someone because of their race or their it's not just race, of course, it's also potentially a disability or how they identify. What I don't want to do is tokenize people and assume that every person of color wants to lead this work, or every person of a particular faith wants to lead a charge. That's also objectionable to me. And so we are working with people that I would consider experts. I don't consider myself an expert. I will always consider myself a student in this area because I want to be a lifelong learner in this area. And we are getting some really expert help of how to try to navigate that and bring in people that can lead this work and encourage others to participate voluntarily on their own, with the understanding that we know it's our responsibility to provide them with the resources that help them to be successful and to connect them to other resources, and really to take on the responsibility of finding this information and doing this work. So again, I do feel responsible for this, but I'm also trying to be cognizant of not taking away the voice of those that have this authentic experience. And I can't say we do it right all the time. I can't say I do it right all the time, but I'm willing to make myself vulnerable to do this work because it is so critical.
Dr. Cabral, again from Kristen Martin, with all due respect, what are you doing at the high school to recruit staff presently? If you listen to the community, the school is failing in this aspect.
Was that asked before I described some of the things we're doing, maybe?
Yes, probably.
Okay, if not, just let me know and I'll repeat it.
And then there is a question, 2 job fairs out of how many? Has RMK been involved?
So the job fair process has just started. So I'm not saying that's all we're going to. This is just the season for it. This is just when it starts. It hasn't started before now. And RMK, yes, actually, I actually had a conversation with RMK because I was And I asked them, I'm having trouble when I'm going to a job fair, whether it's myself or Mrs. Pruitt or both of us, we're having trouble attracting people to our table. And I was so appreciative for the frank feedback that I received, which was yes, and it was from a person of color. She said, yes. And if I'm a person of color, I'm not incentivized to come up and talk to you because you're not a person of color. And so we were a member of Raising Multicultural Kids actually volunteered to come to job fairs and to speak to candidates, and that did happen. So we were extremely thankful for that honest feedback and for their willingness to join us.
Then the other question is, how many Black educators do you have to retain? But that question was answered. And that's all we have right now.
We can move on then to the next item on the agenda is the discussion of and possible vote to approve the FY24 budget. So do any committee members have any questions or further discussion items on that before we move it to a vote? Not seeing any.
Jack,
Go ahead.
just,
Sorry, Jackie.
If Dr. Cabral, if you could just remind people when the meeting with the Finance Committee and the Select Board is to review our budget as well.
Yes, that is April 26th. And we have a school committee meeting April 27th. And so I'll be updating the school committee, who will, of course, likely be present at that meeting on the 26th, but I will be updating the committee and the public on the 27th.
And I get a motion to accept the proposed fiscal year 2024 budgets.
So moved with continued irony.
And a second?
You're still a resident.
Wiseman, second.
Okay, great. And roll call vote.
O'Neill, yes.
DeLuca, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes. All right, great. Thank you for the excellent and thorough done as always. And Andrea, thank you for all of your work. I know you've been doing a lot to not only catch up and learn, but then to also help kind of shape and frame how we're presenting this. And it's really, really well done. So we really appreciate your work there. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, Andrea. I'll just repeat that she's a joy to work with. Please add anything you'd like, Andrea.
Just wanted to say thank you to the committee and thank you, Alicia, for all the hard work in getting the budget into presentation form. I look forward to the town meeting.
All right, so next item on the agenda is the vote to approve the Great Minds contract.
Okay, you've heard a lot about this process with Wit and Wisdom. It's finally here. Mrs. Pruitt is going to discuss the contract with you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cabral. So we are, as you know, we have been through a long and thorough process to choose our next literacy program in grades kindergarten through grade 6. I'm happy to report that we have moved forward. Oh, hold on one second. Sorry. Just do that. Okay. I'm happy to report that we have the quote in. We are moving forward with, we would like to move forward with ordering the materials so that we can have all materials in our teachers' hands by no later than June 30th, hopefully before that, so that they have it before they leave for the summer. The total cost of the entire program, kindergarten through grade 6, which is inclusive of Wit and Wisdom, GEODS, and the professional development that comes along with it, is a total of $354,968.65. Do you have any questions?
Okay. Any, Jackie?
I'm excited. This sounds like a great program. Thank you for all the work that you and your committee did on this. The shipping costs just really jumped out at me.
I know they did give
$12,000.
us, yeah, they did give us discounts that actually, if you look at the discount cost, the discounts that they gave us actually were double the shipping cost. I don't think, I worked on it with another vendor on this, and I think the shipping and handling, because it goes directly through their shipping and handling process, whether it's UPS or whatever vendor they use, they can't reduce that price, so they provide us discounts in other ways.
Thank you. That makes sense.
And do these, I think did you have curriculum that got shipped to central office once and just took up all, or do these get shipped directly to the individual
Like 10
schools?
pallets.
Yes, they get shipped to the individual, to each school. And it's also really important for us to have everything delivered when staff are here, so that, because this is a huge undertaking. When we went to visit Pentucket a couple weeks ago, that was one of the things that they shared with us, was the amount of work it is to distribute all the materials. So we want to make sure that we have enough staff in order to do that.
And Chrissy, we had already put like was it 75,000 or 80,000? We've already approved part of this, right?
Yes, that was an additional cost. That was for the pilot teachers. So this is not coming.
Okay, so we're adding, how much was that we already paid?
That was about 45,000.
Okay. So we're talking like a $400,000 program here then, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And of the cost, what, I know there's a lot here that's print material. So how much of this is recurring?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So it's probably, I apologize. I should have that for you, but I will get that to you. Okay. That was something, our rep is new. So the rep that was with Great Minds moved to a larger position. So we have a new rep who's been fantastic, and we've been back and forth with her. And we just put in asking her for the recurring costs, and I have not heard back yet. So as soon as I get that information, I will send it to you, and we can also I'll also include that in my notes at the next school committee meeting, so that the public is aware.
Great. Yeah, and it does, looking at the quote, it does look like a pretty substantial chunk is teacher additions and licensing and development and things that look like they'll be less frequent costs.
Yes.
Okay. Right.
And most programs do have reoccurring costs like this. So we saw that with Reading Street, which was our previous program that we used.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. So many of those reoccurring costs would just be replacing.
Yes.
Routine.
Consumables. Yes.
Got it.
Consumables.
Okay. All right. Does anybody else have any other questions for Chrissy? For Mrs. Pruitt? No. Okay. All righty. So can I get a motion then to approve the Great Minds contract?
O'Neill, so moved.
And a second?
DeLuca, second.
Great. And roll call vote.
O'Neill, yes.
DeLuca, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes. Okay. All right, great. So next on the agenda, public comments. Mrs. Pruitt, is there anything in the queue that wasn't already addressed during the budget hearing?
Yes, 2 more questions came up from Kristen Martin. And again, she's on Center Street in Northeaston. She said, one more question. RMK went to a job fair in 2019. That was 4 years ago. How recent were these job fairs?
So I apologize. I thought the question was, has RMK been involved? So I explained when they were involved. Yes, that was 2019. Then the job fairs were canceled because of COVID. But we have been going and we've been using the RMK idea. And so we are still grateful that they gave us that idea. And the most recent was March 31st, 2023. And I think the next is on,
May?
Nope, April 12th. And then there's another one in May. So there are several, but we remain grateful for that idea and for them actually volunteering to join us. And I would just add, Ms. Martin, that I can see that you have a lot of questions, but I would be very happy to hear ideas that you have. So I hope that you will reach out beyond this meeting and asking questions, and instead help us, give us some ideas and some input beyond asking questions. I'm happy to answer questions, of course, but we want to get as many eyes on this as possible. So hopefully you'll reach out again.
Okay, great. And I don't see anything else in the queue.
No, that's it.
Okay, great. All right, so then moving along, superintendent notes, Dr. Cabral?
Just a couple of things, just an update on the grounds of Blanche Ames. We have been meeting with Brait, the construction firm. While we will have some critical components done actually at the end of April is anticipated, just less than 3 weeks away, if you can believe it. There's been a lot of work going on. The bus loop is just about, you can see it right between the building and the field. You can see some poles for the backstop that's going up. It's just moving along very, very quickly. And they're telling us that they think by April 28th, I believe, or the end of April, that we're going to have the bus loop, we're going to have the playground, we're going to have the parking lot back on Spooner Street, which is going to be tremendously helpful. What we won't have are the fields just yet, because they're going to be planting sod there. That they're anticipating to get done by the end of May. I did speak to the landscape architects today to see if it is planted by the end of May, does that give us enough time to have that growing season that we need before we have another one in the fall, so that we can use the field. Otherwise, it's really going to delay it a whole year. She said it would be very close, but she did believe it was possible. Of course, that's going to depend if we have, while there is irrigation, sod, for anybody that's ever put down sod, so I'm told, has very shallow roots, and it really needs to be soaked. More than our system will even be able to do. If there's a considerable drought this summer, for example, that could really stunt the growing season, and then we might need 2 more growing seasons. So, Mother Nature's got to cooperate, and citizens really need to cooperate too. One thing that we learned when we did the fields in the back of OA is we roped it off and tried to keep people from going on them, and people went on them. Unfortunately, they see grass and they think it's all set, but we really do need the roots to take hold, and we need to follow the expert opinion that it needs these growing seasons so that it has longevity. And so we're really going to need the residents to cooperate as well, to stay off of the fields while they're really taking. And so if things go well, we could potentially use the fields at the end of September, which is actually a little earlier than we thought. Again, it's predicated on getting the sod in mid-May, a decent season, good rain, people staying off the grass. We may even be able to get their use out of it as early as October. Otherwise, we would have to wait until next year. So I just wanted to give that update. We're hoping for an open house ribbon cutting at the end of the summer, perhaps July, August. So we want people to look for that. Obviously, we want the grounds to be done, and we want to have enough parking, which we're out a parking lot right now. The CPA, we did present 2 projects to the CPA. The CPA and the select board has unanimously supported both projects. One is for courts at Oliver Ames, basketball, outside basketball, tennis, and pickleball courts, to replace the very, very bad shape courts that we have right now. And then a more comprehensive project between Richardson Olmsted and the middle school, and on the other side of Richardson Olmsted, a playground / outdoor learning community space. Those will be coming before the residents at town meeting. That is the last step. If the residents approve the use of CPA funds for those purposes, we will begin those projects immediately. If they don't, then obviously those projects will fail. Most likely the tennis courts are going to be taken offline shortly because we have to take them offline as soon as they become unsafe. They're very close to that. And then of course, the project for Richardson Homestead wouldn't continue. Otherwise, if it does go forward, we're told that half of the playground could be or is expected to be completed by October, the other half of the playground by the beginning of 2024. So that would be really exciting for the community. And then finally, almost finally, we're working on a website. We know that most people utilize our website for direct communication and at the expense of other things a lot of times. And so we're working hard to revamp that. It's a huge endeavor. It requires a lot of coordination and importing of data and documents and so forth. So that is a summer project that we've already started, and we hope to have that ready to launch for September. So we're asking people to look for that. We think it's going to be a lot more user-friendly and aesthetically pleasing, and hopefully people can find a lot of the information that they have difficulty finding in newsletters and emails. They'll have it in one place. So we're looking forward to that as well. And then I know I'll probably chime in when the school committee provides their notes tonight.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Cabral. All right, Mrs. Pruitt, Assistant Superintendent notes. And you're on mute.
Yep, just figured that out. Thanks. We are in the beginning stages of the process to hire a new director of special services. Teresa Skinner has resigned, has submitted her resignation to be effective on June 30th. So I wanted to inform the committee on what our process will be. So I am going to be sending out a memo to staff and to families tomorrow. The memo is inclusive of the actual process, the timeline that we will be going through in order to hire a new director of special services. We are actively seeking staff members, parents, a school committee member to be on the committee. It's an extremely important committee, but it will require a major time commitment for anyone interested. The time commitment is outlined in the memo, but I will share with you that we have currently listed 13 people that we are looking for to serve on the committee. Myself and the Director of Human Resources, Melissa Medeiros, will co-chair the committee. We're looking for, as I said, a school committee member, one of our principals, one of our special ed coordinators. We're looking for a special education teacher, paraprofessional, support staff, guidance counselor, nurse, special services office staff, and a parent to serve on the committee. The committee will be asked to submit a statement of interest starting tomorrow and will end on April 13th. On April 14th, the search committee will be appointed. We'll have our first committee meeting after vacation on April 25th, where we will come up with some qualities that we're looking for and looking in our new director of special services. We will, at that time, over the next couple days, screen applications and choose applicants to interview. And starting May 1st, we'll have our first round of interviews. We will go through 2 rounds of interviews we're anticipating. The first round is a little bit for the larger population, then we narrow it down. Come May 15th, we're looking at having site visits to the districts of our semifinalists. And then we are looking to bring the candidates to the Easton Public Schools as well, the week of May 22nd. During the stage where they come to the Easton Public Schools, we will have forums for teachers to attend, for community to attend, for parents to attend, as well as some students and the school committee as well. We will be asking for, we will be seeking feedback on their experiences throughout that process so that we can gather more information and more feedback from as many people as possible regarding their impressions of the candidate and things that they are excited about, and anything else that they'd like to share. After that, we will narrow it down, and we're hoping to pass along to Dr. Cabral 2 to 3 final candidates, where she will interview the final candidates, and we are hoping that by June 2nd, the Director of Special Services, a new Director of Special Services, will be appointed by for the Easton Public Schools. I'm looking over here at my notes, so I apologize if I'm going back and forth.
Caroline?
I believe this is a position that also requires the endorsement of the school committee.
Yes.
That's the appointment that she referred to.
Yes.
Does anybody else have any questions for Chrissy on that announcement? Okay. All right. Chrissy, did you have anything else?
I just am wondering, I will send this memo out, and I would assume that amongst all of you, you'll decide on who will be on the committee. Okay.
Yes.
Great. Yep. Okay. Thank you. And you heard about the work that we're doing with literacy. There's so much going on right now. It's all wonderful things, but it's late, so I won't take your time to share it all. I'll save it for the next meeting.
All right, great. Anything else? Okay, all right. So school committee notes. I know we typically go through in the same order that we do our roll call votes, but Caroline, if you will indulge us, would you mind going last today so we can give you the last word?
It would be a problem for this reason. I'm happy to, I do have a few remarks thrown together very hastily and probably badly, but the end was supposed to be a brief introduction to the littlest of my grandchildren, because all those teachers who retire talk about spending more time with their grandchildren, even though I may not actually have that opportunity since they live in New York City. I thought I'd let you take a little peek at them.
Yay.
So I'll let you do that first. I mean,
Okay.
I've got to go get them.
Yes. Probably past their bedtime.
Yeah, they've been very patient.
They have been.
Oh,
Hi there, cutie.
Just
Oh.
Well, the other one is suddenly having some kind do you hear her?
Yes.
This is Louie.
Hi.
And he's 4 years old.
I remember
Hi,
when you were
Louie.
born, Louie.
Everybody's waving at Louie. They're all waving at him.
Gosh, that was 4 years ago. Time flies.
Well, here he is. Did you say
Hi, Louie.
Say hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Real loud.
Hi.
Louie, you're famous. You're on TV.
It's nice to meet you, Louie. We've heard a lot about you.
Hear you. I hear you.
Oh my goodness.
Hello.
Hi.
Oh my goodness, she's had a very busy day. But this is Nina. You say hi.
Hi.
You're all waving. You. Everybody wave at Nina.
Nice to meet you,
Nina.
Nina.
Now you're
Oh.
famous and you're on TV
My
too.
name is Louis. What'd you say?
My name is Louis.
Yes, his name is actually Louis.
Louis.
Very
We
nice.
call-
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Bye-bye now. I'll see you in a minute. Okay.
Okay, Caroline, we'll let you spend time with your
Oh,
grandchildren.
it's time and that time. So that's why I had to move it up, because my son kept coming to the door and
No, it's very worthy.
well,
when
you know, I didn't tell him how much some people can talk, so including me.
Great. Well, that was very, very sweet, and I'm glad we got to meet them. Nancy, did you want to start with some comments?
I would love to, thank you. So Caroline, 30 years, remarkable. I think it's an accomplishment no one else has anywhere, to be on school committee for 30 years, because it's not just school committee, it's all the other committees and all the other nights of budget and select board things, and even community happenings that we go to as school committee people. So you've done it all. And I've known Caroline both from being on the EEA side and working with her as a school committee member. And just total respect, your dedication, and everything you've done. And you are going to enjoy traveling to Connecticut and New York to visit your grandchildren more often, because that will be fun. And maybe you can even go with Jack to Florida sometime. So that will be a good thing too, because he might like that you get to go to Florida. And I wish you all the best, and thank you for your service and your friendship and everything you've done for the Easton Public Schools.
Right. Did you have any other notes, Nancy, for this week?
No, thank
Before
you.
I move on to Jackie? Okay. All right, Jackie?
Okay, I'm going to try to get through this.
You can do it, Jackie. Come on.
Chrissy and I are already crying just watching you struggle. So
I wrote it down so I could get through it. And I practiced it, but Karen, it didn't work. All right, Caroline. I first met you over the phone when I was running for school committee in 2015. I was so nervous to talk to you. I was new to this process. I didn't even have a child in the school system yet. You were very kind as you peppered me with questions. I can't even imagine what kind of answers I gave at that point. You then educated me for the first time on the Education Act of 1993 and how it changed our role. Since that initial conversation, I have learned so much from you. You have been my sounding board, my editor, my teacher. But most of all, you have been a good friend. One who I will continue to treasure long after we are no longer colleagues. Your contributions to the Easton school system are too many to list, but know that you have made a lasting impression on everyone with whom you have worked, and have helped thousands of children get the education they deserve. Your wit, wisdom, and experience will be very much missed, and I will miss you more than I can express. And I hope you will continue to work with us between grandchildren visits. Sorry for breaking down.
Ooh.
You're on mute, Caroline.
Caroline, you're on mute.
I just said you certainly shouldn't apologize for breaking down. That was enormously touching, and I'm truly moved. My husband always asks me why I'm not a crier like normal women. I can't tell you why, but I am really profoundly touched by that. Thank you.
All right, Jackie, you got me going. And I haven't even said anything yet. So Caroline, I think I first met you at a middle school PAC meeting, which was probably in maybe 2009. And I think you attended and we talked about MCAS. And we got a little bit into, performance differences between different groups of students. And you made what I learned to be a very Caroline comment. I don't remember what the comment was, but I remember trying to not laugh.
I'm a little scared now.
We're trying to not laugh and thinking, she's sharp and has no filter. It was a unfiltered, very sharp comment that made me think, okay, I like her. So over the years, especially when, 4 years ago when I was running, you were a huge influence on convincing me that that this was something that I was suited for and would do well and would find rewarding among many other choices and obligations out there. So I will be forever grateful that you are persistent and there's no there's no taking no for an answer. You have a tremendous talent for connecting with people that is like just out of nobody else I know. I always remember when you started on the school committee the year, because not to get too much into age, but that was when I graduated high school. So that you have been doing this literally my entire adult life. When I frame that against how much the world has changed and how much education has changed and transformed in 30 years, it is night and day from the world that we were all educated in, that I was educated in, and that was there when you first started, and that you have stuck through all of this change and championed all of the progress and programs that were needed to keep up and get ahead on behalf of all of our students and our staff, and just your endless fight and advocacy for always looking out for who's not getting served, who are we not meeting, where are the needs not getting met, and bringing those forward and keeping them in the forefront again and again, year after year after year. Budget constraints, town politics, personalities, all of that. You've worked through all of it and stayed true to your mission and true to yourself, and have just your commitment to advocating for the students and staff of Easton to better education here is just so, to use one of your words, remarkable. That is a Caroline word. Very remarkable. So we are so in debt to you for your service, your leadership, and just everything you have done for this town, for the students who are educated here, for the people who have their careers here, for the families who are raising their children here, and for the rest of the greater community who gets a tremendous investment on all of the resources they put forward. So you're just amazing. I'm going to miss you so much. I really treasure you as a leader, as a colleague, and as a friend. And I look forward to years of friendship and to seeing your grandchildren grow outside of our little boxes here on the screen. So thank you again. I just will miss you. The void that you will leave is huge. Thank you for everything you've done. Okay.
Yeah, could I just respond?
You may.
Overwhelming exaggeration.
Not at all.
However, you were absolutely true about the filter. My husband claims that the holes in the filter have gotten bigger every single year. And we've been married 50 something years. So it's, but you all three have been way too kind, way too complimentary, but it is much appreciated. I am deeply touched. I know we have two more people that will be talking, but yes, I value you so much as colleagues, and of course Michelle too. And I don't know, this has just been such a big part of my identity for so long. It's going to be a little bit of a shock for me to pull away. I do intend, of course, to remain involved. But anyway, sorry, Lucia and Chrissy, because you haven't even gotten to my remarks yet, which
I don't really have anything to say.
So Chrissy, did you want to go ahead?
Sure. So I just want to start off by saying research shows.
I read an article, probably in the New York
Times. I read an article, yes. But I will say that Eleanor Roosevelt said that well-behaved women rarely make history. So thank you for not behaving, Caroline. And what I mean by that is your persistence and your constant advocacy has put you in the history books at Easton. And I thank you so much for your service. When I think about you, in the past 6 years and how you've influenced me, I think about your role as an intense leader, as a woman, And I really thank you for that. You know, Serena Williams always says that every woman's success should be an inspiration to another. And we're strongest when we cheer each other on. And you have been an inspiration to me as a woman in leadership. So thank you so much. I'm going to miss our talks. Well, actually, no, still call me, okay? You still have my phone number, but you are someone that I will always look up to and always think about what would Caroline say in this moment. You have just graced us with so much of your wealth and your knowledge, and I really, truly am fully indebted to you and grateful for your service and for the impact you've made on my life personally. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Chrissy, too. And I will call you because we do have wonderfully enjoyable conversations. And I have learned a great deal from you, too. And I love the direction that you're headed in. That's a little obscure, but.
And Dr. Cabral?
Thanks. So I of course, I met Caroline at my very first interview in Easton, because back then, the first interview was a publicly posted school committee meeting. Before you even knew if you were a finalist or anything. And I was ready, though. I was very excited. I purposefully chose Easton and did a ton of research, thank goodness, because the questions were fantastic, and Caroline was memorable from the very first meeting for amazing reasons. I've always said that the school committee makes or breaks the system, because they can absolutely be the best supporters and help you get things accomplished, or they can completely sideline all of your efforts. And despite the fact that Caroline has not been an educator, I'll tell you, between her research and her background knowledge, she's not here. Caroline, your intellect, your insight, the questions you ask, you know that my parents are among your biggest fans. They're probably watching right now. And they probably think they have a right to talk because they do watch every single meeting, but I'm sure I'll pass on comments from them. And, you know, my mother, I always tell her how much I appreciate your questions, how much you push back, how much you make me think. You make me want to be prepared. You make me want to be creative. And I think you've literally shaped the trajectory of my career, not just in Easton, but as a superintendent. I don't know this job in Easton without you. So that's going to be very weird. I'm sure I'll still call you, but you know, you are so invested. And I don't know if the people of Easton know how fortunate they've been to have you. You have the purest intention of serving kids, like straight as an arrow. You've never veered from that. You've never had a selfish motivation ever. And that has been such a value to this district. I've said earlier today that to the Bresnahans, as educators, we have to go on faith that we've made an impact. I have seen it firsthand, and I hope you know the impact that you've made in Easton it has been generations, and it's going to continue for generations. So you will be evergreen in this district. You will always have an impact because you shape the trajectory of what's happened in this district. I always talk about being a lifelong learner. You're the epitome of that. I always talk about modeling for our students who are always watching and our staff members. You are exemplary as a model. I love the school committee that's here right now, but I think they would agree that your model has really even shaped the members of this school committee for years and years and years in a very positive way. You're a role model. You're you're my local Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I don't know how else to say it. That's how I think of you. You're that influential to me, and to this district. Keep learning, keep reading. I'm gonna miss telling you that your mute button is on. I don't know who, I gotta pick a new person now. But you have set the tone here and touched so many lives. We've been very fortunate to have you. And I can't thank you enough for your humor, your sarcasm, your challenging me, and for helping me grow. And you've given me confidence as a leader, but as a woman in a very difficult position, dominated by men. And that is not a small thing. And I thank you for that.
Thank you. All right, Caroline, you have the floor.
Well, I hardly know what to say after all of those, mostly, I think, undeserved compliments. But as you know, Leisha, I have told everyone that you are far and away the most creative and hardworking superintendent that I can even imagine, never mind that I've worked with. So, and I think Chrissy, as assistant superintendent, is running close behind. As just both of you have been extraordinary in leading us through some incredibly challenging times. And just watching you has been inspiring. And I have to say, Jen and Jackie and Nancy, you guys are just absolutely the best. And of course, I add Michelle as well. And I'm sorry that she's not able to be here now, but of course, she should be watching her son's concert. That's, that's life and the best part of it. I do have some notes, but I'm now like a little bit distracted by all of these overwhelming complimentary testimonials. But I will see what I have still left that I feel like I should say. So I have worked with 5 superintendents since I first joined the committee in 1993. And there were a few references that a couple of you made that made me think like I must be more like 95 instead of my actual age. But that's okay. But 1993 is, I did not realize that was the year you graduated from high school. You probably told me that before, but aging brain. Anyway, one of the things that was great pre-pandemic was all of the classroom observations I was able to make, the presentations by students, the performances. Honestly, that it made life so much more enjoyable and interesting for me. I mean, that was just selfish. It was just wonderful. I mean, you said that haven't been selfish, but I feel like I got so much from just observing the teachers in the district and the students responding to, witnessing that learning in action, and also kind of the results of that has just been uplifting. And I do feel badly that I have not been out and about much during the last 3 years for good reason. But I just, have missed all of that enormously. I've been lucky enough to be here for the construction or I'm losing my words now, but the expansion. Yeah, expansion and renovation of all of our schools. And I am so grateful to the community for having passed debt exclusion override so that now all of our students are in age appropriate, safe, and attractive school buildings. I can't think of anything more important. Well, I can actually, it's the education itself, but I think it's wonderful that we have done this for our kids. But I have to say, in 1993, when I was a rookie, I couldn't have envisioned having to put on a hard hat multiple times to review or observe ongoing, really massive school construction projects. So that was, talk about a learning experience. but that was just great. And I just, Jackie and I talk about all this all the time when we walk into Blanche Ames, how just the feel of it is so invigorating and so uplifting. And so I thank the citizens of Easton both for having elected me many times to school committee. I guess it's 10 3-year terms, but also for supporting our students in such an important way. And I do think that we are exceptionally fortunate in Easton to have had that really, I mean, there are probably districts, some places that have done similar things, but it just seems extraordinary to me that we have that. I'm just ad-libbing now, which means that it's just kind of falling apart, all of my, all of my careful notes. But I do appreciate, probably more than just about anything, the mutual support and camaraderie that my current school committee colleagues and Leisha and Chrissy have shown during the last 3 years. I mean, when really we've had unprecedented challenges. I know that word unprecedented is overused, but you know, these were challenges that were affecting the health and well-being of all of our entire school community. And the fact that I felt that we built this really kind of this connection that was so strong and so powerful in terms of helping us each get through this, I just am so grateful for that. I mean, what a wonderful group of women you have been to work with and to be with. So I'm the one who should be grateful to you, because that is, I don't know if the rest of you feel this way, but I feel like the last 3 years, you folks were like a lifeline to me. And just watching what you were doing on behalf of our students, when, you know, you probably just felt like pulling the covers over your head, I just am astounded and so impressed. So Chrissy and Leisha, but also the rest of the committee, thank you for persisting and for doing so much during such a difficult time. I guess I was going to say a whole bunch of stuff, but I'm really just going to again say my primary message is gratitude to all of you, and of course to the community for keeping me in this position for such a long time. I consider it kind of like a second career, and I fought retirement from my first career. So this is difficult for me. I will not deny that, but I do feel that it's time, and I am not going away completely. And by the way, I especially appreciate all of your references to thinking of me as a friend, because that is certainly how I think of all of you. Anyway, thank you again for those beautiful words. And I would be crying if, as my husband said, I were a normal person, a normal woman.
You're crying on the inside, Carol.
I'm crying on the inside, and I'm kind of inarticulate and nervous, which is part of the response, but I don't think I've cried for 30 years.
Chrissy and I can lend you some tears.
But thank you all for really those kind words, if overstated.
Right. Well, I think we'll just let it go with that. There's nothing else. There's a lot more to say, but we've got to take a breath and move on.
I think there's a comment.
Yeah.
Chrissy.
I was just gonna ask if I have permission to read the comment.
Yes.
So Joe Berman, 90 Washington Street. Enjoy your retirement from the school committee, Caroline. Speaking from my role working at ECAT, I always appreciated the kindness you always showed toward me and my coworkers. Best of luck.
Oh, how nice. And he's been wonderful in that role. Just fantastic. So thank you, Joe.
Sweet. Okay. All right. So we are going to go into executive session. The next school committee meeting will be on, let me just make sure I don't misstate the date. So the next school committee meeting will be on Thursday, April 27th. And in between now and that meeting, we will have the annual town election on Saturday, April 22nd. My understanding is that vote by mail or absentee ballot applications are available at Town Hall via the website. So for folks who may be going away during the April break, you still have the opportunity to vote. If you'll be out of town, and then at our next meeting, we will have a new school committee member for the first time in 4 years. So that will be quite the changing of the guard. And we look forward to that. Okay, so let's see. I would like to make a motion to enter into executive session, not to return to open session, for the purpose of discussing strategy with respect to collective bargaining for paraprofessionals and SPIA, which is the Southeastern Public Employees Association Secretarial and Clerical Unit. And in my opinion, having this discussion in public would be detrimental to the bargaining position of the school committee. Can I get a second?
O'Neill, second.
Okay, and roll call vote.
O'Neill, yes.
DeLuca, yes.
Wiseman, yes.
Star, yes. Okay.
Hey.
Good night, everybody. See you in exec session.